All here? All right, so got everybody except Jody, and I've asked her if she's on her way. Parking's a challenge out there, I know, right now.
Yeah.
So, but I'd like to, get moving because we have a fairly full agenda today. I'll start off with the reading of our mission and our vision statements. Our mission statement, to keep in mind while we're going through all this, is for the Northwest Quadrant and Old Commons to maintain a diverse historic community that fosters opportunity, respects its past, embraces its present, prepares for its future to the benefit of all its stakeholders.
All it says.
Activists.
Let's take over.
No, that is the vision statement that has
The
this.
vision statement is for the Northwest Quadrant and Old Commons to be a diverse, historic community that fosters opportunity,
My apologies, I thought.
respects its past, embraces its present, and prepares for its future to the benefit of its stakeholders. Okay?
All right.
So let's keep all of that in mind while we're going through this.
We're
All right.
Golden tablets.
There she is.
So.
Okay, we got a full house, except for Bill. All right, let's look at the meeting minutes from the 1 June. Has everybody gone through these? Was there any corrections?
I've got, those were approved already, I heard.
Was enough 15.
Okay.
Right, I thought.
Okay, that's we're good to go there. So the 15th, everybody's read those. I was not here. Any questions about those? Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Okay, okay, the minutes are approved. Thank you, Julie from the city for taking care of everything.
Want to highlight one thing from the minutes from the June 15th,
Okay,
and that's where I had suggested to change the phrase from low hanging fruit to first initiative or anything else somebody else would. I just have a feeling that people that we would be looking at their properties and talking to them, if we call it low hanging fruit, would be insulting.
gotcha.
Yeah, and did we vote on it? I didn't think we
No.
voted on it.
No,
I
just
actually
brought it.
put it on our.
No, we didn't have a problem.
Okay.
We don't vote.
Change it.
So if you could change that, please, and I don't think we need to revisit these next meeting. And just for informational purposes, I will not be here next meeting. Again, I'll be on the road.
You have a life?
Well, I will be somewhere out. Wyoming.
Oh.
Or anyway,
Okay. So we're saying that we are gonna start calling it first initiative.
yes,
Okay,
and I will change my vernacular
okay.
like that. Okay, I'd like to give a thank you to Sue and Stacy for putting together these awesome property lists. We have something to work with. They did a fabulous job.
Accurate, okay,
No, we got it.
okay,
99% would do.
okay.
Yeah, the improvement over anything we have approved at least one. Okay, presentations. So I'd like to go ahead and get our guests introduced and move on from there.
This is Finley Florida.
Morning.
Finley is an intern working with a few organizations, and one of which is the Freedom Arts District, which I'm representing. At my request, and at the agreement of the folks involved, Finley has done an analysis of the impact of the Blade Street redevelopment. She's going to present that.
I would like that, I can give you a link and then you can join as a participant and then share the screen that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the task was to look at the redevelopment district in Blade Street. It was formed in 2010 in response to a recommendation from the Gulf Coast Project Committee. What happened in that district in 2010 and 2024 to see what economic impact is. And as Sue pointed out last time, or asking about the plan, the only thing that changed in that over here, not zoning or anything else, it was a process. Then I assume is get hooked up so she can give her a presentation.
Right.
Now, she is a senior in college at Georgia Southern, so that means that she knows everything and has skin like, you know, like a hypothalamus. No,
Hippopotamus.
she knows this area pretty well because she spends her summers at Thrift and has relatives. As well as Stacy. The only realtors know the area. And I have all the sheets that we filled out last time with the percentages that people projected for the increase in properties and the increase, the assessed values and the increase in property taxes. I'm not gonna go through those later in the agenda.
That's interesting.
While she's doing that, I will mention to you that one of the reasons you will see a disparity in the is one of the parking lots that was behind the former federal courthouse where Joe Tanner has his office now. During that period of time, it was purchased from a private sector group out of county. So it came off the tax roll and to non-taxable, but the property value is still. The Center for Culture and Change, which is part of the Beaufort County Black Chamber of Commerce, was an increase in the assessed value, but not an increase in tax roll, because that's a non-taxable property.
If you need a few minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Until she's ready, I promised to check on a couple of things, last meeting. And I'd like to make my brief report on that. There were 3 properties that I said I wanted to look into. One was, 1302 Congress Street. That was on the vacant, on Stacy's, list of titled vacant homes repaired. Not on the list. The 1302 belonged to Wilbur Washington, related to me. I just want to clarify, at least that I know of. He's located right now in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Spoke to him, asked him what were the plans for the property. He said it's the intent of the family to repair, to maintain it. Getting old, there are 3 siblings involved, and someone's looking at the possibility of retiring there if not retiring.
So that is an heirs property then, Fred?
It's the 3 siblings, yes, but there's no dispute. They don't
Yeah,
have,
it has a
they don't have a
DED,
dispute.
Okay.
Okay.
What, I'm sorry, that's what?
DED. That's when I looked up all of these for deeds and stuff, and on the very last page, it says what all those abbreviations stand for.
Deed in lieu of foreclosure, deed in trust.
So that,
Oh, no, I-
there's no dispute among families. They do have plans, they are open to, assistance. I spoke to them, I spoke to Wilbur again last night, just before I came to make sure that, that was the case.
Do they have a timeline?
I'm pressing. He told me that they had someone coming in looking at what needed to be done. But again, that's too general, so I'm gonna try to get it to be a little more specific. The second property was 1700 Green Street. And it has Ally Mitchell listed, but it's really Gerald Mitchell. And Gerald was in St. Petersburg. He was actually here last week. I've spoken to him. As a matter of fact, I met him in St. Petersburg. I mean, not St. Petersburg. He wants to, his intent is to have that property left to either his daughter or his son. He is working on, want to make sure that the title and everything is clear. They're working on that. He has paid the taxes over the years himself. He put a new HVAC system into the house about 2 or 3 years ago just to maintain. So there are issues. You can see that the screen and some other things that are not done, but he's had a friend inspect it for him every so often. In doing this, I found out that there may be a second property involved. In my opinion, that's of historic significance that he owns, that he's been paying property taxes on. And again, he would greatly appreciate assistance. My thing, he was thinking about selling one and repairing the other. I'm saying, maybe you need to get a realtor, someone to look at it and manage it for you.
What's the second one? The second historic?
I don't want to mention it.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to do that publicly at this time.
Yeah, and it does have an FUD on it, so the deed, it's a full covenant and warranty deed,
Yes.
so he does have all that.
So who was the owner of that again?
But Sue, I think that, you know, if, and I could be wrong, but that's probably his mother, she might have that deed, but they've got to probate it.
Well, that's what he is,
Yeah, okay.
he was
But then I
down
don't-
here, he was down here to do that.
This is 17.
Okay.
He was down here. And talking to him, I found another family that owned 2 houses in the area. One on Prince Street, that no one's living in, it's in decent shape. And another one in Green Street that's not of this significance, but it's vacant and, again, when I contacted those folks, they have to, you know, Gerald, they would like assistance to get things cleared up. The problems we want to try to, at least I think we want to try to do, if someone has something that's not in great disrepair now, you don't want to let it sit and become a greater problem. So the idea is to try to give some assistance ahead of time to prevent that further deterioration. Third property is 712 Newcastle Street. That's the house on the corner of Newcastle and Duke. And that family, there are 3 family groups that they're having a family meeting this week. It is 2 of the 3 want to definitely maintain and they've engaged an attorney to help with resolving some issues. But the majority, again, after their meeting this week, they'll know exactly where they stand. I would prefer to keep it in the family. The young lady who grew up there lives behind I call it behind the bricks, behind the National Cemetery by Metzfield. But that family, there's a history to that house.
So that's an occupied now.
It is not occupied. It is not occupied.
I thought you said that girl that lives there.
No. She now lives behind the bricks. I said, she
Oh.
is out
But
there.
they do keep it up, because I've
Yes.
been very close to there,
Yes.
sometimes they have electricians there and they're.
He wants to
Yeah,
do
and
that.
they are
Yes,
around,
exactly. And the house next to it used to be owned by the family. It's now a rental.
yeah.
Well, short-term rental.
Short-term rental.
And I think there's a 2-story one,
Also, there's
And that's
another
what you
family that's a part of it, and then the Grand Army Hall is.
Yeah,
located
yeah,
next to that.
yeah.
So there's a great interest in, she, after their meeting this week, they'll get hopefully there'll be 100% agreement on which direction they're going in. I intend to follow up on, this is one of the kinds of things I'm saying, look, if we can make progress with this, engaging people, find out what their needs are, seeing if we can assist in some way. And like I said, what I'm finding additional problems and people after talking to.
Thank you for doing that.
I'd like to make it known, I did talk to the lawyer of the Low Country Volunteers shortly after. Yeah, and they did say that with enough advance notice, they can, when we find enough people that want assistance, they will gladly do a presentation and we can do it in a room or someplace. So they have said that they will do that, they just need enough notice.
So what from this experience, what I'm concluding is that people want help. We've got to put together the right combination of folks to
Yeah.
give them the guidance and the assistance that they need to move forward.
Well, isn't it
Particularly
best-
those willing. Well, yeah, sometimes you gotta go a little bit beyond what we might say here, but as I said, getting the knowledge of the families and the history and connecting that to
Yeah.
moving forward. Very important. So I intend to follow up on these 3. The committee, I just want you to know, I'm gonna press us to use this as I guess examples of what can be done when we focus. And then I'll let the young
Thank
lady,
you, Fred.
and I'm gonna
Appreciate it.
recommend another later.
All right, Finley. You are on, ma'am. You want to sit down here? Would that be easier?
I'll just stand up.
Okay.
Like Nick said, I'm Finley and an intern for 33 Associates Baja in the Freedmen's Arts District. I've been coming to Beaufort for quite some time now and have worked my past 4 summers here. I'll be a rising senior at Georgia Southern with a business management major and concentration in hospitality. I'd like to share my findings with y'all for the development district. We're getting into the numbers. The district was created in 2010 by the Northwestern Quadrant Study Group. The only incentive offered was to streamline the approval process and permitting process by removing the historic district review board. The main incentive not offered was there's not any tax incentives, which is a common mistake.
Can you talk a little louder, please?
Oh, yes, sir. And the main purpose was to encourage redevelopment by simplifying the approval process and making it easier for everyone. And the numbers I calculated was from the assessed value and tax collections for each property. I averaged them out too. The assessed value increased just over 312% from around 5.5 million to 22.4 million, with an average annual increase of just over 10.6%. And the property tax collections increased almost 77% by around 80,000 in 2016 to just over 141,000 in 2025. Also had separate research on the nearby properties that were around Main Street District.
Okay, yeah.
Could you say that again? The property value increase from what year to what year was 10%?
Yes, it was for the tax collections about 6.5% of an average annual increase. And in the assessed value, it was around 10.6.
And that
For-
includes caps on those properties. Is that why why the increase in revenue is less than the increase in value?
It increased city revenues.
It did, but it didn't equally. So is that because of caps on the property?
Let me respond to that. There are three things that I think have caused the amount of property tax collection to grow slower than the
Okay.
amount of assessed value.
Okay.
Those three things in no particular order are: one, those properties like the Center for Culture and Commerce that were not taxable do tribute assessed value.
Okay.
Two, when you had an unoccupied or rented property that was paying a 6% assessed rate plus school taxes, same value for that property if it's owner occupied, we'd be paying about 1/3 of the property tax. Several of the buildings that are in this process went from being a non-occupied or partially occupied commercial or rental property to becoming owner occupied, so that can put a slowdown. The other one is there are properties that are in the area that increased in valuation but are owner occupied. South Carolina state law only allows the increased value and that to be taxed at 15% every time there's a 5-year reassessment. And that will catch up over time. That changes if you sell that house. So if that house is assessed at 300,000, you're only paying a 200,000 rate. You sell it, the property taxes will go up. So my conclusion, and this was not something we asked her to look at, my conclusion is the amount of property taxes collected in that district will continue to climb as those caps and as those changes are
Okay.
reflected in the tax base.
Yeah, each year they've grown.
That makes sense.
So a lot of this is Midtown Square.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and was this done for the Midtown Square neighborhood?
We were
But-
finished with that in 2012.
Yeah, this was done in,
Yeah, 2014.
2010.
Yeah.
Can you separate out Bladen Street itself
Yeah,
or
this is,
with, I know with the numbers?
With the numbers.
I have all that on a spreadsheet.
Okay.
I
We
can
didn't
show
have
you.
to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Do
We
you
can look
have,
at, I would like to know that.
because Midtown Square is definitely a unique animal.
Right,
Yes,
right.
yeah.
Bladen Street's the really the corridor that I would like to see. Is that something you could tell us right now on your spreadsheet, or is that something we could get later?
Later.
Okay.
Fun what Stacy said, because Midtown Square is a unique.
Yes.
city. But if we are here doing this mission, there are a significant number of properties that are in trouble.
Oh,
And if we take the gains that were made in that redevelopment district, which was encouraged by that 2009 report, not because of Midtown's work, but because, as they put it, everything required multiple meetings, multiple fees, and it was difficult. So they asked for streamline. So the question would be, should we as a group recommend to the city, we should see some streamlining in these areas so as to facilitate more of what we achieved with that redevelopment district? I'm not sure, but I'm told that the planning commission, which my chair is Bill serves on here, is considering abandoning the Blade Street or dissolving the Blade Street redevelopment district because it has been so successful, we don't need it anymore. I don't know if that's true or not, you might weigh in, but the question is, if this worked there, ought we have some scenario where we say to those families like what Fred was talking to, if you do something within the next period of time and have a back end to it so it ends at some point, you can take advantage of this facilitated streamlined process. And that might be a way to get those folks to be motivated to move more quickly than they might otherwise.
Yeah.
It might be helpful in getting other parties that might provide financing motivated to do that. They'll know when to close in the process it's only going to last for a certain period.
Let me respond to that because there's a lot of discussion around that particular issue. And the main reason that we were thinking of abandoning it was because we were losing control of the design process and concerns about not going back through the historical design review board. And we did have some issues with things being done, new construction actually is what it amounted to, that were not in compliance with the historical review board regulations. And so we were concerned about losing that overview or purview of what was going on. Now, I don't think that the planning commission, I mean, I don't want to speak for the whole board, but I would say that for the majority of the board would agree that relaxing the rules on construction and materials is something we are all interested in to try and help move forward with renovations of all the historical structures in that area. So there may want to be consideration of some type of compromise to that so that we could put in the controls of the historical review, but still allow for the streamlining that Dick is talking about. And that I would definitely bring to the board because we didn't really look at the difference between those. We're only looking at the historical significance in the area at the time. So I would say that I would be happy to bring that before the board, and we can I would suggest that maybe this board make a recommendation to the planning commission that we reconsider that based on the criteria that is being set forth now, and that maybe we somehow reword that special exception.
Go ahead, Frank.
I'm hearing something a little bit different. My perspective is, yes, the value assessment's up, property taxes up. So that means that the demographics of the neighborhood is going to change. So that means that some of those folks who own the property, their incomes aren't going up to keep with the assessment and the taxes. So it's putting the, I would say indigenous folks, but I call them legacy folks. Let's say legacy. That's the better term. It's going to make it difficult for legacy folks to remain in the area. I just put that out there because that's one of the concerns. I'm hoping that the Northwest Quadrant would be again a diversity. We keep talking about diversity. Well, this is an issue, in my opinion, that somehow the abatement. Senator Waddell talked about a circuit breaker sometime some other things that may have to look at in order to make it feasible for some people to remain in the area. So I just put that on the table. I don't want to go into detail now, but that is a concern, one of the concerns I have.
And I think that is something that needs to go to city council. Obviously, the planning commission can't do anything about that, other than recommendation.
I'm not saying it's the thing, all I'm saying is that when we bring out the
No, I
information.
understand.
So what I understand then is that you're proposing we might want to talk about recommending a tax incentive, a tax break, hear me out, and we could do that with many of these if we're moving forward on these properties that are getting put back together again. They need some work. The people who are putting them back together need some help. But in the long run, what's gonna happen is that property value is gonna go up. And the people who just did that cannot afford to keep the property. That
I'm
is
just
kind
saying
of
we need to
a
look at the
bad
problem.
And
We need to address it.
I just want to mention here now, I think we're focusing on the vacant, dilapidated building. So there's nobody in a vacant building that's going to be forced to move out the property management. They may be able to earn income by renting. They may decide to move into it, in which case they'll need to accept that. But having that property there worth very little and costing them taxes and having a risk does not add a value to that family. It does not act like an asset, but act like a liability. So I certainly am not in favor of doing things to cause people to move from houses they were living in. I think if we could do stuff, we could take vacant and dilapidated buildings, make them so people can live in them, in that part of our community. That would be useful. In the Freeman's Arts District, that's what we're doing with properties where we're not asking to change hands, but we're trying to do it in situations so the property becomes an asset for the family. It's not easy in these cost days. It's not easy to find the financing. But when it's difficult to do all of that, and you've got the unknown risk of what the regulatory process is going to be, that's a problem. One of the issues we'll come back to at some point is demolition and what it takes to do that. I'm not sure what question we've got for Finley, but we'll ask.
Go ahead, Kurt.
I was gonna ask, do you have a baseline for the whole historic district? Because my feeling is inflation, et cetera, almost the entire historic district has probably increased about the same amount. Because if I go back on,
Yeah.
I can hear that last part.
well, if I go back on historical prices, they've pretty much tripled, or inflation has basically happened in the same, from 2010 to now, those 16 years. I'm just curious if this is because of the district, or is it because every property has basically had the same increase?
I think you're right, and specific to the historic district. I like the initiative thought about doing something relative to taxes or legacy owners. Now, legacy owners would be somebody that's trying to renovate an existing property. Now, when they sell it, that's something different. So if there's some type of tax relief for the legacy owners and that could apply to anybody in the historic district, quite frankly. Because I know that, my property has tripled, like Kurt said, it's tripled in value since it's more than that, but it's tripled in value since I had put the money into it. And I like a lot of people would not be able to afford to live there because of taxes. And I can only imagine how bad that is in the lower income areas that make it almost impossible to continue to live there. And so I think I'd almost go more far reaching than just the properties we're talking about, but really think about writing something to city council, making a suggestion that's a little bit broader than that.
Except something very specific and it applies to Gerald. He's paying taxes. He's living in Peterborough. He's paying the taxes. And he's doing that. And he can't, he's a retired. So all I'm saying is we just need to look at the issue.
Yeah.
You want to do something, but pocket one.
So there is the Bailey bill,
Right.
which is the big tax incentive.
Right.
For anyone. okay, the tiers are older, it doesn't have to be on this list or whatever. A lot of people don't know about it. Now, the local municipalities get to decide how long that tax abatement is and what the rules are for that. I don't really like saying anymore that it's 10 years tax abatement, because I'm not sure that that's actually true. I know that there's other places that do 15 years. There's some places that do 20 years. So I think that that's something, because there's not very many people, one, that know about it. I know there's a number of people who have renovated their homes and haven't taken advantage of it. And two, I think it's something that we could look at, maybe increasing the number of years. That would be, I guess, a city council recommendation.
And the challenge with, I think with the Bailey bill, if you're a homeowner, your property either needs to be historically significant or contributing.
No,
That's
huge.
what,
Well, okay,
Okay.
Okay, we need, okay, go ahead, Sue.
One is that the properties, like what Fred's talking about, are empty, definitely they're paying 6% on it. So it does become a family they're not renting it, but the ownership.
It's a resident.
Yeah. So if it becomes owner occupied, that amount of decrease is huge, that 4%, because even the millage rate is different, one, and two, legally, can a law be written that says legacy owners get a tax break? I mean, is that something that you can offer to a very specific group legally?
We're going beyond the scope of what this task force is really set out to do. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing, but
Yeah.
But the only thing this task force really should be doing is not setting guidance, or not setting policy for those things, only setting policy for what we're really supposed to be doing, but giving recommendations then, and that certainly is open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if we could let her continue with her presentation
I
and.
was going to just say that right now. Could you go back up one slide though, help me clarify something here? The assessed value increased by 312, okay, from 5 million to 22 million. Now, 5 million, is this per what? For the whole neighborhood? Or
Per property value that was averaged out with all the properties inside of.
That redevelopment.
wow. So every property averages out inside that district to $5 million cost per property?
Inside all the ones.
That's the total.
Total.
Okay,
Yeah, the numbers or the dollar amounts are total and then the percents are average.
okay, but the individual properties then, okay, all right, got it. Thank you.
And that was just my conclusion, which we just talked about.
And the reason that I think this is important for our financial strategy going forward. If we could convince the county, school district, and the city, put in place a TIP district for, say, the Northwest Quadrant, captured a portion of the revenues that would be generated as additional tax growth, use that to plow into a program where you could invest in rehabilitating some of the properties. That would be a self-funding mechanism, because as we previously talked about here, but if you replace or renovate one of these vacant or dilapidated buildings, the neighboring buildings around it see a step up in value. And that value translates into increased property revenues over time, unless the city cuts the millage rate, in which case it'd still be an increase, but you stay close. But having some mechanism where you put that back into these neighborhoods, because there's vacant, dilapidated houses that are affecting the neighbors' property values, would be something that would have an economic basis that you could show from the results that have been achieved previously in this redevelopment district.
And maybe she could give us a copy of that slide presentation. I think.
I brought copies.
You did great.
Okay.
Finally, I just wanted to, sorry. Mike, Mr. Comey mentioned that we are voting tonight on this, and I think they concerned about the kind of the small accessory structure and then like the Pilates, what is it, Pilates studio and that, and you know, a few other things in the past, I've heard, but you know, you to make a motion, that would probably be helpful if you think that this is streamlining is important, to keep it or not. If you don't, then I think they're gonna approve it. So just need to make a decision.
Yeah, I would,
Objective on that.
I would very much like to get something from this board as a recommendation to the planning commission that I could use this evening when this does come up.
So can we like state what the question is again?
Or what,
Okay,
what,
some, you know, it was discussed, we had a lot of work sessions, but to remove the Bladen Street redevelopment, oh, just the Bladen Street, not Boundary Street. Just thought that one, it has been very successful, there was hardly any lots really that needed work, and two, there was these concerns with past problems.
We can remove Boundary Street if you want to.
Obviously Libby is on the planning commission, and she's very passionate about this, she wrote a text amendment to get rid of both of them, not go anywhere, but kind of revisited with the work session, so I think that makes sense, so
It does.
remove this administrative approval from Bladen Street.
But has the commission considered the redevelopment area incentives and whether those incentives would remain or just the
No,
historic
no.
district overview?
No. We hadn't separated,
Okay.
so since we hadn't separated, that's why I was saying that. Because we have not separated those incentives out from the historic sign review board reviews.
That might.
So, so that's why I would like, it would be good for this body to come up with a recommendation that maybe just a paragraph or something. Because we could go ahead and I could bring that up, put that into our consideration tonight, if we get to that point of getting to an approval. And we could probably get an approval to adopt that with the approval of the rest of the those sections of the code.
so,
Okay.
Bladen Street district includes Prince Street.
Let me
that's my
just put this in there. Let us put this on for today. But let us get our second presentation out of the way, or not out of the way, that's the wrong way. to put it. But let us get our second presentation done. Right there. So that they can move on with their day. Okay? Welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Presentation about clearing up air property.
yes.
And the presentation was they need $150,000 to do 10 properties, and we'll discuss the process. That's just a reminder. Thank you.
Thank everyone for having us again. We are very passionate about our work and clearing heirs property, just helping the community understand property ownership to use it to their advantage. My theory is, property ownership should benefit the property owner other than the privilege of paying taxes on property. Okay, so we all are aware of the heirs property issue. Correct, and we know the problems that comes along with heir property ownership. So I won't get into that, but I want to just briefly speak about the other side of the conversation that is less talked about. How does heirs property affect a neighborhood or the surrounding property, or has a ripple effect on the individuals who does not have heirs property, who has clear title? So we all know that with heirs property, the owners, they lack marketable title, meaning they can't sell the property, they can't use the property for refinancing, they can't use it for collateral to refurbish the property, they cannot get title insurance on the property, and the property is vulnerable of being lost and taking away generational wealth from the family. But also, the effect of heirs property on the entire neighborhood or community is it depresses the neighborhood property value. You briefly spoke about this. When you have heirs property, if it's dilapidated, overgrown, the heirs do not live on the property. There are disputes as to, or confusion as to who's to maintain the property. The property goes and it becomes overgrown, rodent infested, and the aesthetics would, I guess, detract developers and community activist organization from investing in the community. It could, vacant lots and abandoned property could attract squatters, criminal activity. All of these factors would negatively impact the entire neighborhood. Secondly, once a property begins to deteriorate, of course, we know that the tax values decrease, which also affect government, because if you're not getting the appropriate tax revenue from these properties, then that detracts the government from, paying this revenue and reinvesting it back into the neighborhood. Another factor that is very important is when you have heirs property, it makes it difficult for the family to take advantage of community activism or nonprofit organizations such as the task force or any organization that refurbish heirs property or dilapidated property. If it's heirs property, who gets the check? Who signs the documents to make the contract or the agreement binding? Who is responsible for the taxes? So heirs property, in conclusion, does not just affect the family who owns an interest in heirs property, it affects the entire neighborhood or community. One of the ways to combat that is to create an initiative to help the underserved families to clear up their heirs property so that they can use their property the way the ideal property owner can utilize their property. They could use it to create generational wealth. If the property is refurbished and is an income producing property, although they may not live on the property or may not be able to afford to live on the property because of the tax value, the rental value is a different scenario. The rental value would also cover the tax value and create generational wealth for that family and also improve the aesthetics and the attractiveness of the neighborhood. Okay, so a quiet title action. It is a long, expensive, arduous task. And a quiet title action can last from a simple title action could be completed in an average year. And there's some that could be completed, it takes as long as 5 years. I've seen some that took as long as 10 years. So there's a lot of attorneys in the area who do not want to deal with heirs property. It is a very strong commitment. And because of the out-of-pocket cost that goes into clearing title, a lot of families, especially families who are underserved or below the poverty guidelines, they cannot afford to clear title to their properties. Therefore, they cannot take advantage of organizations and funding to refurbish their properties to make the properties look like. Yes, sir.
Can you describe the process that you have to go through for clearing title? That I understand it can take 1 to 5 years. I just want to understand, what is the process that you actually go through to try and accomplish that fact?
The first we meet with the family, of course, and we have to do a title search. A title search tells the attorney what liens are on the property that needs to be cleared, whether the property was surveyed, what other issues that affects the property that should be cleared in a quiet title action. That's, yes.
Just to be clear, when you say you meet with family, you might meet with two of the people that own the property, and there may be other ones that aren't in the meeting you don't identify, and in your title search, you'll find that out.
Yes,
But what-
yes, theoretically,
What do you
yes.
find without it? That's my question.
I'm sorry, could you,
You actually find that out in a title search?
well,
It seems to be a little bit vague. And I'm not sure if the title would carry ownership to that extent. Just a question.
absolutely. Well, the way I did my title searches. So prior to this, I own a title company. I did title before law school. I've done title searches for attorneys all over the community, and I testified as expert witness in land disputes and quiet title actions. I'm pretty well versed in title searches. So you have to really know the tricks. So title searches can reveal errors, okay? Or at least it'll give a head start if it's not a complete family tree. And you fill in those gaps by having meetings with the family, searching obituaries. In my opinion, that's part of the title search. Obituaries are very important. They have legal significance and they help with the family tree when doing a title search. And you also, sometimes you have to do genealogy searches that, we would work with the Heritage Foundation to do so. So title search can provide heirs, especially if there's a probate administration where all the heirs must be listed. So it depends really, but it gives you a pretty good foundation. And once I review the title search and determine what issues affect the property, because I believe that when you have a client and you're clearing title, you should only be in court once, okay? So what I do is I include all of the property issues that deals with that property while I'm clearing title, and that would prevent the family from having clear title, you have your final order, but oh wait, now we found out there's a boundary dispute. Now you're back in court again. Okay, so that's one of the purposes of the title search. Then you would put together the family tree, and that could be an arduous process. Putting together the family tree and drafting the complaint is the most time-consuming part of a quiet title action, but it has to be done because you're not clearing titles if you don't include all of the heirs who own an interest in the property. So once that process is completed, the family tree and the complaint, and it's filed with the court, then you go through the normal, regular process of a normal litigation. I hope that answers your question. I'm sure you don't want me to go into that nuance.
I just wanted, if you can't find some errors, you have to proceed with somebody speaking for them. How that works?
If we cannot find heirs, then there's a legal technicality in your quiet title action where you have to list John Doe, Jane Doe, or Mary Rose as fictitious individuals who represent the unknown heirs, because it's very often that we will not know who all the heirs are. And those heirs are served by publication, regardless of the flawed, if you will, service of publication. South Carolina law says if you own property in this state, you should be a vigilant property owner and periodically check the newspapers to see if your property is listed. So the unknown heirs are served by publication. There's also a theory where you can also abandon the unknown heirs from their interest. And that is important because when you're clearing title, let's say, for example, you have a family who lives in Beaufort, lives on the property. The property is, in disrepair, but they've been paying all the taxes and living on the property. And now it's time to clear title in their names. And they found out that they have like 3 heirs in New York somewhere who also owns an interest in the property. And now, since those heirs have to be notified, they might want to state some claims, and they have to be in the decision-making process. So the law says if those heirs were abandoned or made themselves unknown for 20 years or more, then you can't actually abandon their interest. And that may not be a bad thing, especially when you think about the family been living on property and investing their money and paying taxes, and all of a sudden you find out you have 3 other individuals who you never met who own an interest in the property.
You mentioned something that, I'm sorry, I don't need to get into this so much, but I'm just real curious. You mentioned something about publication. If there's unknown, ownership, in a property, you've got your family here, but they think there may be some unknown ownership, or you do. Can you do publications that would, say that they have to present themselves within a certain time frame, or they lose their opportunity?
That's exactly what publication said, where you do.
And that's how you do that.
Yeah, you actually publish the summons, and it's,
And how long is it that when you publish, that's interesting, you publish a summons. That's tricky too, but, so if they publish the summons, how long do they have, for response before you can clear that?
okay, so the publication is to be ran for 3 consecutive weeks in a newspaper of general circulation.
Right.
And 30 days after the first week of publication is the time frame. 30 days after that, then those owners or those individuals are in default. And one thing about publication is one of the most costly part of a quiet title action, because the newspaper charges by the word. And you know, lawyers can be wordy. So the publication can be as little as $700. I've seen publication for like $5,000. All depend on how many errors.
Okay,
Yes.
and I can understand that, but is there a requirement for where that publication has to be made?
Absolutely,
So it has to be in a national
no.
or
No.
regional or
No.
what?
A newspaper of general circulation to where the property is situated.
Oh, okay.
So for Beaufort, the Island Packet or Island News.
You can't put it in like the Jacksonville Times and try to get away with it.
So,
Yeah.
so you're telling me that for an individual, there are 3 heirs. One heir is paying all the taxes or taking care of everything. Those 2 heirs that are not contributing anything do not lose any of their rights because they're not contributing a penny to
That is absolutely correct. However, there's an exception to every rule. The taxpaying heirs has a legal cause of action against the other heirs for their proportionate share of the taxes, upkeep, and maintenance of the property. And the court will give them 10 years back, okay? It's in my mind, it's law. It's this case law, tenants in common. So all tenants in common, heirs or tenants in common, there are certain rights all tenants in common have, okay? Which is why heirs property is so problematic. If one tenant is paying over their proportionate share, then they have a cause of action against the other co-tenants for their contribution, and courts would award it. However, those costs has to benefit the property. So if one heir put a jacuzzi in the backyard, they will not be able to recoup from the other heirs. But if that heir replaced the roof, have the property surveyed, paid the taxes, and that heir owns 25%, they could sue the other heirs who own the 75% interest for 75% of the cost.
That makes for great Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much for
Yeah.
thank you for that. That helps me a lot to understand this whole process.
Okay, also, surveys. Surveys are another costly aspect of a clear title. What's the use of having clear title to property if you don't know the boundaries of your property? All you know is that you have clear title, but clear title to what? And if you have read some of the legal descriptions in the deeds for the northwest quadrant or anywhere in the city of Beaufort, it says the northwest portion of block 65, the city of Beaufort. Where is that? So the law says a legal description must adequately describe the property to the point that someone will be able to find it on the ground. So if you're thinking the northwest corner of block 65, where is that? What portion? What meets the distances? So I highly recommend, in fact, most times I won't do clear title to property if there's not a survey, because you have to tell the judge or the world what you're clearing. Secondly, a survey will tell you if there's any encroachments. And if there are any encroachments, and it's very prominent in the city of Beaufort, the encroachments. If you don't clear up those encroachments in court, then that family who just spent time, money to clear a title, have another cause of action, a property dispute on their, hovering over their ownership. So encroachments can turn into ownership. We all know, have heard about adverse possession, okay? And so when there's a survey, that survey will first tell you the metes and bounds. It will tell you if there are any encroachments onto the property that you need to address to dispel any adverse possession claim. Or projection, it works the other way. So a projection is something that's on your property that encroaches on your neighbor. So when it's on your property, it's called a projection. So does that projection make you vulnerable for a lawsuit for trespass, because it's technically a trespass? Or does it make you, does it put you in a situation to say, hey, I've been projecting on this property for 10 years or more. Now I'm going to claim this property where that hosts my projection. So that's why a survey in a quiet title action is very important.
Apply to a roadway through your property.
Yes, a roadway, it needs to be, if title is being cleared and there's a roadway through the property, I would ask the client, does the public use this? Does anyone use it for access? For how long? Is it by permission? Do you have an agreement? Because that all matters. It all matters. So yes, quiet title actions is very detail oriented, but the goal is so that the owners could have clear title at the end of the process so that they could utilize government funding, using the property as collateral, taking advantage of programs that refurbish their property. And, the trickle effect of that is that the entire neighborhood would be affected by property that's vibrant, producing income, aesthetically pleasing, so forth and so on.
Just to be clear, encroachment doesn't mean that someone has a part of their house projected on your property. Encroachment could be a claim to a piece of the property. So that if, let's say my survey says I own this, her survey says she owns that, and there's an area that's in dispute.
Yeah, that is not an encroachment. That's overlapping boundary, and that is a boundary dispute that.
That's frequently common too, I think.
Yes, very common.
Encroachment is like fencing or an ADU or.
Encroachment is any object that is on adjoining landowner property that goes over their boundary lines onto yours. Anything, and it's also a trespass.
I think Habitat went through that a couple of years ago.
You still always have a legal right of access to your property, right? That would not be an encroachment, would it?
You do not always have a legal right to access to your property. A landowner can landlock themselves, and that's another legal theory. I'm not sure if you want me to get into that.
We want you on speed dial.
Most significantly, owners, they're stuck. And what's really sad is when, I speak with a client and they think they want to sell their property, or we have, an ambitious realtor and they have the property listed and the property's under contract and everyone's happy about that. And then we get the title search back and it's heirs property and everything falls apart. And of course, you have disputes where the heirs want to refurbish the family property, want to improve it, but the ownership interest is so diluted, they don't know if their other heirs. They don't know how much interest they own. They just do not have the legal standing to enter in any type of agreement with any organization or anyone to improve their properties.
So if we use, for example, let's say all the reasonable and nice family members agree down here. We all cooperate, we do some of our piece of property, everything. This crowd on that end of the table, we've got one or two that don't want to cooperate with their other family members. Is it then difficult to do anything with your heirs property? If you've got clean title with two of the owners, maybe they only own 5 or 6% each. If they object to something you're proposing to do, whether it be a mortgage or selling timber or something like that, we'd have that.
That is correct. It's with ownership. Everyone has to sign off on any type of agreement to make it binding on the entire parcel. If we have some who is on board and some who does not, if an agreement is entered into, then it only affects the individuals who signed the agreement, which is a moot point. However, what I usually do, once a family clear title, there's one additional step that should happen. Okay, so think about if you're clearing title into 10 individuals' names, all right? And then one of those individuals died without a will. Guess what? You have heirs property again, okay? And it's got thousands of dollars to clear title all over again. So what I would suggest to families is to put the property in a family trust or a family LLC. I like the family trust because the family trust appoints one trustee and the other heirs, or several trustees, I like the one trustee scenario. The heirs would be beneficiaries in the property to the extent of their ownership interest. So when the trustee is conducting business on behalf of the property, you're only dealing with that one trustee, right? And so if the beneficiaries disagree, it's really a moot point. As long as the trustee is working in the best interest of those beneficiaries, they can sign any document or enter any agreement, and it would be binding against the property.
If the owners, those 10 people that had you clear title, if they selected a trustee from someplace outside to meet the 10 members, they could do that if they found a bank, some other property will serve as a trustee.
Yes.
That's legally possible.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. That's great. A lot of.
Stand next to this rock star. So this proposal is coming from Sharice Handy, who is an amazing rock star attorney in the Heritage Law Firm, not looking through legal volunteers, because currently, although we're seeking funding to clear title and do quiet title and work more with Attorney Handy, we currently are not able to do that work. But I'm definitely proud to stand alongside you, Attorney Handy.
Thank you. I get so into this and the nuances of heirs property. That's why I was here.
Seeing that proposal, could somebody kind of briefly explain?
Perhaps you want to tell us what the proposal was as opposed to me trying to.
Well, you want to share it?
Yeah, so
Since you're doing the work, maybe you should share it.
So the proposal is for funding for at least 10 families in the Northwest quadrant who needs to clear title. And we are asking for $150,000 total for 10 quiet title actions. And the numbers come in depending on the family members, the size. Title action can be as low as $5,000 and can be $20,000 upward. The bulk of that cost are the out-of-pocket expenses. Okay, for example, the stays that could be $1,200 to $5,000 plus. The title searches, the expert testimony, genealogy searches, heir searches could be from $500 to $2,500. That is because we would want the individual who conducted the title search to testify as to their findings to the title. Publication costs could be anywhere from $600 to upwards of $1,500. The more heirs involved, the more words involved, the more the publication costs for advertising for the property in the newspaper. We have guardian ad litem fees. So someone asked about unknown heirs, John Doe and Mary Rowe. Well, we need an attorney who is neutral to represent those unknown parties. Or if someone is reading the newspaper and they see that they're heir to some property that's being quieted, they would contact the guardian ad litem that's listed in that publication. That is a requirement in all quiet title actions. And the court costs, such as filing, court orders, service of process, could be from $250 up to $1,000, because you have to serve all of the defendants who are most of the time the heirs. And I also include adjoining property owners, because if you don't include them, and if there's not a boundary dispute, then your client or the individuals are susceptible to a lawsuit again. So I include the adjoining landowners to say, hey, here's the survey, here are the boundary lines. Do you agree or disagree with the boundary lines? Speak now or forever hold your peace. So that's basically how that works.
I don't mean to go through all that. I understand all that. But is the 150 an escrow or a lump sum, or how does that work? That's kind of more my question.
Well, in escrow, not a lump sum, because the nuances are so
No,
vast.
I understand why you would want it to be an escrow. That's why I was wondering whether you're asking for an escrow amount versus just a lump sum, because I don't know how you do a lump sum and figure that out. So
Right.
that's fine.
Right, everything is in escrow, but with the individual costs, it's not going to be blanketed across the board. It all depends on the family situation, the property, what is needed.
So I think my brain's not quite connected all the way. So this is something that can be done. But we have 150,000, is that what we're saying? Because volunteers are not in a position to do that. So we need to figure out how that funding can happen.
Right, that is correct.
Okay.
And the family members who need the funding and who must benefit from the funding, of course, does not have the cash funds to finance a quiet title action. And it also, it benefits the family, because once they have clear title, then they could utilize the property or take advantage of nonprofit organization refurbishing the property and, doing whatever they can to make the property viable for themselves and the community as a whole.
I'm not going to recap how we got here. I'm going to use 44 as that number I recall when we were just having this discussion. 44 vacant and dilapidated properties in the northwest quadrant in the old commons. And the assumption we were going on that somebody put forward with degree of confidence that 50% of those would be heirs property, 22. And our question was, what's it take to clear that up? And when we requested this proposal from you, we were looking for legal expertise that we could translate into a financial decision on what needed to happen. Now, you folks, as I understand it, currently have a grant from the Federal Home Loan Bank to do estate planning. So if funding were found to clear up the title, under that grant process, you could do estate planning so it falls back into heirs property, as I understood that time of the request. So if we're right about 22, if you think we're right about an average cost of 15,000 apiece, we need $330,000 to deal with those 50% of those vacant properties in that area. In the years that I've been talking about this, you may have had different experiences. We always thought, well, it depends on the heir situation. We know how much it's going to cost. One thing I am confident about is heir property is not getting simpler as the years go by, just because there are more heirs and stuff. So if we think that number is 50%, I don't know how we make a dent in that other 50% if we can't address the heirs property. That doesn't mean you're going to fund it or we're going to fund it or the city's going to fund it. But we did not ask the Center for Heirs Property to come in for a presentation. And one of the big differences there is that they require upfront that every member of the family that has an ownership agree. If you can't find them, they can't agree. Second issue is they require all the family members to agree that they will not sell the property. That's a legitimate decision for them to make with their money. But if there are 10 heirs and 3 of them want to sell their parcel to the other 7 heirs, they can't do that without a clear title process. So telling people it's their asset and they can't sell it if they want to seems to me to be intruding in someone's personal relationships in a way that's controlled. So, we're governed by that. I have personally seen circumstances where people have lost their property because someone came along and bought a small interest in the property. One gave 6%, and they filed a petitioning application. That property go to auction. I think the rules are more complicated about the family being able to buy it back and the rest of this. But the people that are most vulnerable, I think, are not people that have suddenly clear titles they want with it, are going to be the people that find themselves caught in an action where someone has bought a small interest in the property and filed a petition that causes that property to go into auction. And that auction oftentimes achieves less than value. I'm acquainted with an incident on Hilton Head where I think there were 113 heirs scattered all over the place.
49.
And that property sold, I think, when they cleared title and finally sold it. And the attorney doing out of some emotionary instinct, he was doing it because of the buyer. I think they sold it for $7 million plus. In less than a year later, I think it was sold again for 13 million plus.
Wow.
Now, I don't know who the heirs were, and I don't know what the conditions were, but I'm guessing the ones that didn't know they owned it felt better about having some percentage of $7 million than something they didn't know they had. The fact that they didn't get something of 13 million, so I don't know what conditions that were. But it's the sort of thing that doesn't breed trust among heirs organizations like this and others that may show up trying to.
Could you explain real briefly what partitioning is and how you can accomplish it?
You have an expert here that will
Yes.
do it much better
So-
than
Okay.
Partitioning is implemented by law that any co-tenant, two owners, 5 owners, 10 owners, 149 owners.
Right.
Any co-tenant has the right to partition. And there are several types of partition, but the most common is partition. So that one owner, if that owner owns like a fractional interest, let's say that owner owns 1% interest, that owner can go to court and say, hey, court, I don't want my interest in property, I want my interest in money. And so the court will order the property sold and the sales proceeds divided among the owners according to their ownership interest. First, the court will allow any family member to purchase the partitioning heir's interest, but most cases in partition is that the other heirs, the remaining heirs, are land rich and cash poor, and they cannot buy out the interest of that heir. And so the property is sold on the open market, and all of the heirs who was living on the property are displaced. And they would get less than the market value of the property because it's the net proceeds. So basically, a partition is subdividing the property in either money, or a partition by sale, or kind. You can subdivide the property in equal individual parcel shares.
But then the county instituted something, the treasury years ago, unless that's changed it, did not have to sell the entire property. You could petition off a portion of that, get the overdue taxes and still,
This is different than selling to pay taxes. This situation I can't know about because I got a call by Reeve Sands, maybe they've known Reeve back in law here. He alerted me to a sale that's going to happen in a few days. I went to see him. What happened is a mother whose son had gotten problems, needed some legal help. So she sold her 60% into this property to a person who wanted to develop it. So this now was a person that owned 6% of the property, along with a group of other family members that can tell him. He filed a petition. Reeves asked me if I would bid on the property. If I went and looked at it, it was really different. Not seen this. So I showed up at the courthouse over here at the appointed time after having done some due diligence on the property. And I walked in, when I walked in, Reeves was sitting there and there were 5 or 6 women standing behind him that were angry and mad and lost. At that end of the table was a guy that looked about 135 or 45 pounds, represented by JoJo Valley. He's the guy that bought the 6%. And I'm sitting here thinking, these mad ladies who are angry, they could tear him limb from limb. So I think I'm over here. So I'm sitting over here, and about that time, the clerk walks in. And she didn't speak to anybody, didn't say anything, just dropped a bunch of files on the table. And then I'm thinking, here's how the New York Times, the Washington Post can explain that folks get mistreated in Beaufort County today. Couldn't get worse. And about that time, Judge Kimlin walked in. Judge Kimlin was a journalist by all accounts. He also was a poker player and a saxophone player. So by this time, he was pulling with him a tank of oxygen because he was suffering. He sits at the table, and Judge Kimlin at that time was sort of frail and all that. He looked like if you did this, his skin would just part. So, and he was laughing like this was. And everybody else was laughing at JoJo. And JoJo was telling him, just barely moving. So they go off. And the guy that was over there that had the 6% bid $10,000 from this piece of property for 2 pieces. I bid 15. And they looked at me, I was new in Beaufort, they didn't know me. They looked at me like I had just thrown a dead flounder in the middle of it, like, what are you doing here? Like messing with our part. So it got to the price I was willing to pay, and when they went beyond that, I stopped bidding and they sold, and that was around $100,000. Then the second parcel, about the same situation came up, and I heard JoJo lean over his line and said, if you don't get this piece here, you won't have highway access. So now the bidding starts 10, 20, 30, 40, we got up around 150,000. They start going 5,000 increments and $2,500. About that time, JoJo says, excuse me, everybody jumps except Judge Kimlin. He said, I just want to clarify, my client owns 6% of the property, and the rules of the auction said he got to put 10% on a purchase and close 90 days. My personal only needs to put down 94% of the 10% because he owns 6%. Isn't that right, Judge? And Kimlin looked at him, looked at me and said, what? Made go through the whole thing, and I didn't care, so we went to bidding. After a couple more rounds, it was past what I was based on, I left it alone. I got a box of candy for Sharon later that day from Reeves, and I think he had arranged a $20,000 loan for the family. They were going to be able to bid that on the first time. And if the guy did 22 or 25, they were done. Then they were going to build it on the second track. We were hoping to get out of it $50,000 because it was somebody else at the auction bidding. Total price was a little over 300,000, I recall, and that's what we paid for the property. That's where the Truist Bank and those offices are their liaison. Kimlin Circle, got Judge Kimlin, who was in the auction building. I don't know what else has happened in Ayers property since that. Fairly to me, here was a $300,000 plus piece of property that would have been sold for $40,000 plus because one good guy had arranged an auction, had that, and Reeves not in there and done that. They could have lost the entire thing for $10,000.
That's
So-
one thing you can do about that. You cannot take away an heir's right to partition or co-ownership.
And they could sell off
My
6%.
mother's attorney. Reeves, my mother.
They could sell off 6% of the property and pay off this guy, see, because he wanted to.
So this is really nasty.
Yeah.
Nasty law.
There's a low level of trust here. There's a reason.
Yeah.
And tell me this place.
Is this happening very often in Beaufort County?
Oh, absolutely, it happens
It is.
often, St. Helena, Island, mostly with the city of Beaufort. You don't have, we were referring to like a partition by allotment. Those lots are not large enough to be subdivided or portioned off and sold off. You have to sell the entire property, who's ever living on that property, or they have to move because they no longer, even though they're not partitioning heir who, instituted the sale.
So actually, if we're able to come up with a plan that can work for the community, these legacy owners have a tremendous advantage in looking at what we have to offer, and not being subject to like partition sale later on by somebody.
Absolutely, and I believe the family to participate, they need to be educated on the after effects as well. Because even after you have clear title, you could still have issues with co-ownership. So I would, suggest them concentrating the ownership into a protective
That's
container.
part of the education process.
I had an attorney friend of mine, who pulled the report, he said, there's plenty to pull from the courthouse.
Absolutely, yes.
And it is a messy affair. There's one case where the grandmother sued the children and grandchildren because they sold the timber on the property and didn't pay her part.
Yeah, well,
The court segregated out a certain amount of acreage and gave it to the grandmother and made them pay her. They signed a legal document to sell timber on property. They didn't have the authority to sign that document. Did the timber company know that? I don't know. But there's all kinds of messy.
Yes.
yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
Can I ask one question
Please do.
of our guests? On Green Street, within the downtown area, back around 2006, SCENG, now Dominion, came through Green Street with the huge electric poles that are up and down the street. When that was done, before it was done, property owners were approached by SCNG and said, hey, we're gonna put this pole right here. We need to have easement on your property. We'll pay you $6,000, $8,000 if you were a corner property. And then, whatever it was for a non-corner property. So fast forward all these years, and now the children and or grandchildren would like to do something with their property and they're unable to because of the crisscross of now this easement that Dominion has on their property, which sometimes goes right through the middle of someone's home. So they would have to go through a whole bunch of rigmarole to be able to get approval, even to just put in a driveway, or anything like that. So from your perspective, how would that be handled?
You would have to go through the rigmarole to.
So there's nothing y'all can do to.
Because they are bounded by the easement that their ancestors entered into. And depending on how long the easement was in place, you said 2006, even if the easement was invalid, now Dominion has a prescriptive right to use it. So.
Okay, so that is affecting, several of the properties that are on this list. So some other barrier to be aware of.
okay, thank you.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
I believe.
yes.
Thanks. Before they leave, I just like to just, if we think it would be helpful to try to find $150,000 to have one of these clear. That's
Down right here.
all right.
You guys,
Down right here.
and I have a few more brochures
Oh,
for y'all to
okay,
share,
thank
so
you.
you'll have all our information.
Sue, Stacy, I was looking at y'all's list and under heirs, it looks like, and there's some question marks, that there's about 15 of these properties that you can verify have heirs.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how it worked, like if it, like Stacy said, but there was one that.
Thank y'all.
Person who's got holding the title has passed, and so it still needs to be cleared,
Okay.
and so then it's an
Thank you.
appropriate. Thank you.
Okay.
And that, I don't have privy to all of that, so that's why I don't like writing down. And, but does that mean it's heirs or not? I don't know,
Sure.
because I don't
Okay.
know all the details.
Okay. We're not gonna get near what we wanted to get done today. I can already see that. Straight, that happens. Okay, so first business that's gonna happen is gonna be talked about writing a recommendation regarding the Bladen Street Development District to the Planning Commission. So we'll throw a football from this end of the table to that end of the table. And the wording of that would be recommending that we continue the incentive, the Blake Street redevelopment district incentives. But also, and I don't know if we want to include this on that. But that would be to include the homes that are, the refurbished houses that are on the vacant dilapidated list. Am I close to getting into that right?
Well, no, but that might be partial, right? I think it might be simpler to just say that, we, allow, or the only thing we would add to that is that we would, allow the review of the design review board as part of the process, which now it doesn't.
The design review board or the?
Historic review.
Historic, I'm sorry, you're right. Historic.
Okay.
What about if we just write a recommendation, tell them we're engaging in study, got these information. They defer final action for 6 or 12 months to allow sufficient time for us to form a position.
I don't think it needs to be 6 or 12 months. I think we can come up with a recommendation.
Question that I'm not sure of. So are you saying that the board is trying to release Layton Street or the whole district?
No, it's just.
Just
Just out of the, not the district she identified.
Layton currently doesn't fall under the purview of the historic review board.
Right.
So what they're trying to do is put it back under the purview of the historic
Is
review
that
board.
correct?
Yep.
And then all the overlays that were for that original district where they, didn't have the same guidelines as, divided like windows and stuff like that, which we do in other areas. That isn't gonna be affected, that it's just for the district. So
That's
the
what we're
district
trying to do.
to get it back under,
Right now, it's under my power.
yes, it's just you.
Let's take it away from me.
Well, you know,
Well,
Pass
but
it.
no,
Throw it into our lap.
All right.
please, you understanding the problem is that when we write the codes and everything that we expect to happen, and we put things under the purview of staff changes.
Yes.
Man,
We have to think ahead of that so that it will apply to anybody and not just what to certain
To
staff.
whoever, okay.
If we asked to table it to make a recommendation as a group for 6 months, say if we don't want to go for as long as 12,
I don't even think we need those 6
but
months.
does that hold people up from applying, or is it still just gonna remain the same as not under the purview? Because we don't want some project to sneak in and be bad, but we don't wanna.
Why would you not want to just go ahead and have the amendment now? Is there a reason that you want to hold off on it?
The only thing I would question, not really question, is the redevelopment incentives. And I think that this group would like to look at those redevelopment incentives and see, do we want to keep those for the area or even suggest expanding it
That's
to a larger area?
That's the thing. And
municipal code, this just goes to city council for the planning commission, which.
Basically,
It might have been helpful if we had like a little background on why this has come up. I kind of know why this has come up.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple projects, if I'm not mistaken. But we don't have the pictures because I didn't know that this was gonna be on the agenda. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were a few projects that got approved. And then
Yes.
people are like, maybe that should have gone to the HRB. Is that what's spurred this?
yes, yeah, and the problematic area is basically in the new construction, it's not in
Right,
restoration or renovation.
right,
But that's just because there was a loophole.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And all I'm thinking is from the conversation at the table here is that we want to just close that loophole.
But Dick's comment, if I understand it, is that if we close that loophole has proven to allow property is to, triple.
We don't
I
know
think next
that.
recommendation is that we ask them to defer making this decision tonight so we can figure out what all those goals are. Before we make a specific recommendation as what we'd like to see happen.
Yeah.
Well,
Fred,
the only loophole I see here is the one, that right now, we don't, we're not having historic design review board review these things. The incentives that are out there, we would want to keep them. Now, if we want to review those incentives and maybe change those, we could always do that, come back with another recommendation that we revise those. But I'm not sure that, and we can't do that right now. We can't review those.
Does it
Yeah, it would
include the 1500 block of Prince Street?
This is,
When I say 1500 block is Bladen back to Munson.
no, I think are looking about.
Middletown, Brent. So what you're saying is that whole district would come under the purview of
But
the
he's saying
HRB.
the district will be dissolved, no longer exists.
Right, and so, but can we still use that, the success of what it was until it wasn't, as a reason to allow a similar policy for a different area?
Not if you disallow
Not if you
it. Not,
disallow it.
if we take it out, it's gone.
Right.
You can use any justification for any action you choose to anytime, whether anybody uses or not. The question the only question I'm posing is, if they dissolve it in July, and come back and say in August or September, oh, we hadn't like to have kept that, maybe expanded a bit. Then you gotta overcome all that inertia. Well, I was Brad, give us a chance. There was some additional questions. I can tell you this from the standpoint of potential investor in this. If you do this, it's a bad time and a cost dealing with some of these dilapidated houses that I would like to deal with. If you continue to keep in the process. Point my looking at this, with the Jenny looked at it was not because they're incentive. The only incentive that we're talking about here, allowing staff to make a decision as opposed to going through weeks, months, or other things. Uncertainty and go through the process.
Oh, and so are you saying the incentives don't necessarily cover everything that you see covered in it?
I'm saying the Blaine Street redevelopment district has one incentive, one only. That incentive is that we're removed from having to go through the HDRB process. Any other incentives outside the creation of the Blaine Street redevelopment?
Yeah, I would let Stacy want to talk.
I just don't know that this group as a whole has enough information because we weren't gonna talk about this.
That's why.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's just, it's not, I feel like any,
No, I agree with that.
because there were issues before Kurt even got here.
So please, somebody make a motion that we can vote on to write the recommendation to the planning board.
I'd like to ask if Dick would like to make that motion quite frankly.
I move that we request that they defer any action for, next 3 is enough, for 3 months.
6 months,
Three.
3 months, okay.
So we can get it out of the.
How about 4 months? Can I get 4?
Well, how long,
Yeah, 'cause I don't
how long?
think-
Like, I already-
Yeah.
Oh,
Do anything, like frankly, right now, we've got a backlog of a lot of stuff that we haven't even gotten to here yet. We're just organizational. And so I'm thinking that I would agree with Dick that maybe we ought to be looking at it 6 months. And of course, the board's gonna debate that
Yeah.
once we put it on the table. But I would suggest that we go ahead for 6 months that Dick is recommending.
do we need 6 months?
I'm gonna make my motion to 6 and recognize everybody to get to the board.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you to vote for it, Stacy. Even though you put it on.
They'll probably
I
put
didn't
it
realize-
up, so if we go say.
They put a motion to 6 months or up to 6 months.
My motion was 6 months. And we'll finish 6 months.
And I don't know if you have time to join us this evening, but I think you could present that.
This was
I'm there as well, too.
This came from Commissioner.
A second,
Amendment and like maybe a month ago.
Yeah, and understanding the position that they were in, what they wanted to accomplish. I don't think what we're trying to do is against that. It's just that we want to have it under consideration for a lot of other different reasons. And I think if anybody from this board, obviously I can't do that, would like to be there this evening to just give a brief presentation to that effect. And if I'm sure staff can come up with whatever this decides to put in writing, and then I can invite Dick or whoever from the board to talk about it.
Okay, Dick, restate.
Recommend we request the planning commission to take no action on dissolving the Blaine Street Development District for a period of 6 months. Hey.
Seconded.
Is that what you seconded?
Seconded, yes.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Pass. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
yeah, no, I didn't.
You actually
Yeah, she did.
I am.
So,
She did, I love it.
No, there's no decision being made, it's just a referral.
Right, exactly. That's
I'll,
why.
I'll do a slide on it and then if someone wants to come, but you're a representative, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there too, so.
The only concern I have, or that the board might have with this recommendation, is that between now and the 6-month period, any new construction coming through will not go before the Historic Design Review Board.
Right.
It will come through Planning Commission, and Planning Commission is also the Design Review Board, which doesn't overrule the Historic Review Board, but it would in this case. So,
I'll just approve as many accessory houses.
Buildings.
all right, so you were gonna put together a slide saying that it's the recommendation of this committee. Okay. Next thing then, I'd like to touch on today, we're not gonna get the properties today. We're gonna run out of time, unfortunately.
Yes.
The $150,000 that Low Country Legal Volunteers is looking for. Can we make a motion, a recommendation to city council to allocate that money? Somebody smarter than I am needs to help me with this, because I have no clue.
Well, to answer your question, we can certainly make that recommendation. However, in the past, we have been a little more supportive of them, housing those funds into our repair program.
Yes.
And in this particular case, I would suggest we support application from them to Federal Loan Bank, to appropriate public foundations, other places to fund this project to go along with the project they already have funded to do wills. So I would suggest we write a letter of support to their application to seek funding from all available sources.
But wasn't she pretty clear on this is through a private firm, not Low Country Legal specifically for the reason? So are we, is that
Right.
a DDA moment?
Both
Like,
we have from her is from Low Country League. They are subcontracting to that project.
got it. Okay, so it's still.
She's hoping to raise enough money to hire full
Right.
come inside.
Got it. So we would still be asking on behalf of Low Country Legal, not on behalf of party associates or whatever.
That's the
Firm is-
proposal we received from
Okay,
Low Country.
great.
And the reason we received it to the Freedmen's Arts District is this organization can't request proposals without having specific approval of city council in advance.
So to ask the secondary question, how are those 10 properties or how are those funds allocated? And is it based on our recommendation on the first 10 you think we can be most effective with economically versus letting it?
There's a series of questions we have, like, can we find 10? Can we get it done in a reasonable time period? There's all sorts of stuff like that. I think where we're on this particular motion is to encourage that we're going to support them going out and finding that money in other places. That's as far as I'm prepared to go. We'll pass and continue down the path. I'm prepared to talk about what you'd like. I will tell you that I think they'd like to do the least complicated what they can so they can get it finished. I don't think we're gonna end up doing where some of the family members say they
Need
participate.
help.
There are significant number of family members, not a couple participating, because the heirs property title clearing process passed. It's not been one that has been a lot of trust and confidence. You see that differently, Stacy, Brett, been involved.
So for this motion, do we want it coming from us? Do we want like the mayor to actually write the letter, be the signatory? Okay, so that would be, which would be a city, April, city.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's.
That okay?
Okay. Yeah, and I can forward it over.
Okay, you need it from us.
Speaking of half, even first district.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll give you a letter though.
So we need a motion then for that, please.
I move that we recommend to city council that they support Low Country Legal Volunteers in seeking funding from public and private sources, $150,000 to clear property titles on 10 properties in the northwest quadrant, in all kinds of neighborhoods, city.
And not committing money, but supporting them, going out for money, seeking money. Okay.
Just a question of, 10 or more, because suppose it comes under, and if you got 15,000 left, do you let 10 or more?
It's,
That's up to the board.
if it's an escrow, then you can use it.
However,
However, the person providing the $150,000 probably gonna have something to say about escrow versus one-time payment.
would that be in the proposal to say escrow? I think we have to let, bringing the money to the table.
We're recommending that someone give them the money and they should.
Recommending that the city support us in someone giving them.
Right. Now, I know for a fact, one of the larger community foundations in the state is looking for one other than people that will not let you sell your property and that require all the family members to agree in advance. If they're a source for some of this money, that would be great. The funding party may only give them $50,000 to start. I may give them, do it a la carte rather than 10. The reason we asked for 10, as I recall, was because we thought 50% was going to be their property. That was 22, and 15,000 apiece, that's 330,000. We've got a feeling about the magnitude. We're now being told that number may be 15 properties out of London, at 15 and 15,000 apiece. That's 225,000. I don't know what the number is, and I don't know which one's going to be heirs property next month. We're not heirs property last month, because it happened. So this gives us a basis to start with and start clearing it up. My knowledge, in the 20 years that I've been back, there has never been a program that came to people and said, clear up your property, but you don't have to all agree and you don't have to sign a document saying you won't sell it for a period of time. It will be your property to do with as you wish. I have never known a program like that exist. Anybody else remember one?
And do we have to determine which 10? Do we have to say that or?
We're just encouraging, they get the money on the 150,000.
Figure out the next.
Yes,
That we figure out. Yeah. Okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay. The proposal. Everybody heard it.
Yeah.
All in favor?
I wrote it.
Do you have it written down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you in favor?
Any opposed?
Yes.
I'm not.
Okay,
Is in favor? Okay.
so fast. Okay,
Heavy knee.
all right, 10 minutes to 12. For our next meeting's agenda, like I said, I will not be here. But we need to start moving into properties. I would ask everybody to spend a lot of time with these. I did spend a lot of time with these. They're gonna jump right off the page. Some jump off the page is, you should probably just demo them. But it's a recommendation. Yeah, I don't. Tell you my opinion.
That's right. The request for the agenda for next time is that like Stacy, I don't know, whoever, somebody who's super knowledgeable, just give us an overview over that. It can be better, but
I mean, we can study these, but I would really love to hear some of the background information that we might not have, so that we can, listen before we speak.
Okay, so here's what I also would like to suggest. Sue and I have spent a lot of time on this list, okay? And I know it's not perfect. If anybody knows anything about these properties that they can add to the list, that would be fabulous. So it's kind of like a working document.
Yeah, it's like one in particular, the one up on, Newcastle, on my block. That is now a vacant property, the yellow house around the corner, 1010, I think it is. Newcastle.
Yeah.
I know the HBF has a lien on that property.
We don't have a lien on any property. We have easement.
Easement, yes, thank you. Correct, correct. You have an easement on that property because the ceiling, the plaster work on the ceiling is old and fabulous.
And they may be renting out that property again.
They're not,
No, I mean, eventually.
It's across from,
Big fan,
it was rented for a long time.
I know the fan,
It's on.
senior moment. No, but.
Yeah, it's on it's not on
I
that
know
one,
the
it's on
yeah.
the repair list. They're on the repair list, basically.
1005 is Sterling Washington. It's 1008.
Yeah.
1008, the yellow house.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jackson family used to that.
Jenkins, Bobby Jenkins.
Oh, Bobby?
Bobby Jenkins,
Owns 1008?
Yellow house right here?
No.
owns 1008 at Newcastle Street. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what was on the title.
1005, Bobby Jackson owns too, right?
Yes, he owns both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bobby,
Bobby Jenkins.
Mr. Chairman, I have a request.
Yes.
It's on the.
Is we have a matrix of decisions, some of which are complex, include air property, building space, capacity, any numbers. And we've learned a lot about air property today, and we've learned a lot about development district, how that works, learned a lot about some other things. Here's one thing that I would like to propose we do. We're gonna have to get to this sooner or later. If you drive around the neighborhood with all these houses, there are some of them that clearly are past economically safe. They may be non-economically safe. I'd like to go ahead in that conversation because I can tell you the demo process is currently operated by the city HRB is a significant impediment to achieving our mission of the project. We're gonna argue about it, so we're not gonna make it easier, we're gonna keep it like it is, or make it hard, let's just have that discussion. Get on with it. So we've got these wonderful images here, you got, I'd like to come back next time with a list of, I don't know, 5, 7, 10. When you look at it and say, that needs to go, but it's not economic. If we say that is not economically feasible, but it's historically significant, so $1 million on something that'll be worth 300,000 when finished. That's okay, but let's go ahead and have that debate about whether we're going to support demo cleanup, that sort of stuff or not.
Well, we get into
So when-
demo too, we can talk about.
That's right.
Yeah.
so when we say that, if we say that, what would happen then?
That remains to be seen on the will of the group.
That place straight in.
For anything that yet.
That
So
place.
it's hard to ask. Yeah, I think it's premature for us to talk about demolishing properties. I think you have to look at them on an individual basis.
That's why I'm proposing this come in with the ones that are most obviously need to be talked about, and let's talk about it.
Right, in other words, take time, go around, take pictures, walk around, drive around, whichever you want to do.
You go around, at least you can put down all the reasons why we shouldn't take it down.
Yeah.
And you present that side.
Okay.
All right, take a look at Stacy's list. Stacy and I have spent some time together in it. Stacy has put together in this list those examples of the ones that she feels by looking at them, that they're past the point of renovation.
No, I haven't.
That's not it.
All right.
It's not a demolition.
Did you have fun?
I mean, in a perfect world, I'd like to see them all saved.
No, I understand that. I understand that.
So, I mean, that's why I took the pictures. You know, we do, because Sue and I worked on this list, and, you know, a number of these properties are heirs properties, even though they do have a deed. They still might be heirs, and other people might know more information, but I mean, I don't know that, I mean, this one, 812 Charles Street.
Yeah.
What about it?
Well, and there are,
I mean, you know, yes, it could, you know, should we request that it be demoed? I mean, I think you need to talk to the homeowner and say, hey, like, what's your plan? I don't know that this group should be like, oh, this one needs to be demoed. That
well,
I don't know.
I think-
still on that?
No, this is Eustace Commons.
Yes.
That's
So-
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that we need to take the ones that, like Dick said, are really, really bad.
Mhm.
And then if the owners aren't gonna do anything with them, and, you know, then maybe we do, but then we have more of a justification for a demo than just kind of like based on the condition of the property without talking to the homeowners about what they're planning on. You know, they might have a 5-year plan. I mean, the house across the street from me, people would have said that that one is like way too far gone. And, you know, I mean, you just look at it, but I mean, they're doing it.
well, yeah,
So,
you know,
I mean,
But I think with that particular property though, when the city team went out, when we went out and did our review, it was the small duplex that was right beside it that has no roof pretty much. now.
Yeah.
Of course, that was the only property that we looked at out of all of the 27 we reviewed that we all agreed, unfortunately,
Yeah.
needed to be demolished. But the one adjacent to it that you're showing with that picture, you know, we need to have Ken to be sitting at the table when we talk about properties and their conditions. Yeah, but that one was not on our list.
well, and I mean, 812 has that, it's.
But it's the
well,
one
same-
next to it.
Right, and
Yeah.
that picture is in here.
right.
But what I'm saying,
Was the first indication.
but what I'm
Oh, yeah.
saying is, but you could talk to Eustace, okay? And he could say, no, I'm fixing the property. So then you say, okay, well, how long do you wanna give
I
them?
want to remove my ill worded statement
Good.
earlier. The direction I was going is just take a look at this and everybody kind of come up, like the chairman said, let's take a look at those and take a look and have a discussion on condition next time, and then go from there.
Let me be clear, as far as I know, no one is prepared to write checks to pay to demolish anything. As far as I know, there's no money prepared to restore the majority of these. That's why they're vacant and dilapidated, have been for decades and will be, and they continue to deteriorate every day. But I'm telling you that having done the demolition of Duke Street, the process that's currently in place is onerous and causes people to not start doing anything with their property. Particularly if in great circumstances we had there, we're restoring those two little houses, which were in pretty bad shape. Because modifications as well as deterioration would have cost several $1,000s more than replacing them with what's there. That now is going to be a better block because that happened. But I can tell you, when you require a structural engineer for a demo and the structural engineer says, I don't want to do that. I do a lot of work with you, Dick. I'll do it if you really want me to, but I don't want to do it because they'll call me names and be mean to me. I just don't want to work in the historic district. If we're going to do something with these properties, we need to get up and we need to talk about it. But at the end of the day, if our solution is, well, they tell us we're going to do something in 5 years, so we're not going to do anything, that's great. All I'm going to suggest to you at some point, if you're expecting to get significant money from other sources coming to do these properties, those sources are gonna be able to say something like, how long do you think will it take to deploy that? And if there are 5 houses or 8 houses that we talk to the property owners that would like to do something, we don't really have any expectations on that. Again, the perfect world is gonna have to give way to the real world, and in the real world, those people don't want to know you can demolish them in place. They just leave. And we can do that. We can just leave, and the odds in my mind of us getting much done of any significance neighborhood is pretty low. We can just walk away and continue like this, and Cal used to do what he wants to do, and somebody else uses, will buy somebody else's house and do what they want to do at some point with it. But if we're going to be able to do something, we're going to have to accept the premise that if people want to get involved at any size, we're going to have to streamline the proposition process for that. That's all I'm trying to do, is try to identify some houses where we can have that conversation.
All right, so what's the agenda
I think.
item for next
Like I
week?
should say, maybe we should follow this, and then maybe pick some houses.
Okay.
And not have this whole conversation, that should be a future conversation, that's, pick maybe 4 or 5, and then the next meeting, talking about all that, so it's not so much stress. We're talking about 4 or 5 things all at once, it's just, let's just look at the houses, evaluate them, and evaluate the ones that need significant repair and work and maybe demolition. I think maybe that's what you're saying, but if we don't say that, it might turn into this meeting where we're trying to deal with like 3 things in one meeting and we don't get anything done, right? So
like if everybody goes out and looks at stuff and picks the ones that they think are the worst, and we come here next week or next month, and there's common ones, then we just go with those common.
Because that was
then that
what
should
we
be a
were supposed to do
future.
today.
Right.
Yeah, we could have a future meeting. In a future meeting, we have the demo.
Well, everybody selected the same one.
Okay, go with the common one, go with it, what does that mean, what do we do?
Well,
Yeah, that's the stopping point, and the thing that we have not done is taken this to the next step. And the next step, and I think what Dick alluded to is, how do we get to a point where we make a recommendation to city council? And what is that? And what is city council going to do? That's a discussion that I think we need to get into. And maybe that happens if we take a look at the properties, because, this is a public meeting. And we don't want them in and just say, okay, these are the properties, and we think this, that, or the other.
Right.
In absence of the owners.
Right.
And that's a very difficult position to be in, especially when we don't know what we're gonna do once we have made those identifications. So I think that's a little bit sensitive. But I think we also need to look at what can this committee, this board do that can be a recommendation for the process that goes to city council for them, so that we can make recommendations that they might approve.
Mr. Chairman, to facilitate next meeting, for those who have time, if they could submit to Julie or Kurt ahead of time, a week ahead of time, their recommendations or their thoughts, and that be shared with everyone. Instead of waiting until we get to the meeting, we'd have an opportunity to at least absorb some of the things, and we can get more done. Again, everyone's not gonna have time, but the more we get ahead of time, the more we can get done when we sit down and meet.
So
All right, so-
what I would ask is everybody send me before Friday their proposal for next month's agenda, so I can get the agenda put together and sent to everybody, so you can start looking at the agenda. And then we'll go forward from there.
Yeah, what I'm suggesting, we said we're gonna look at the list that Sue and Tracy put together, or Stacy. All I'm suggesting is that at least a week before that meeting, you still have your agenda.
Yeah.
Send it so that you can compile something, and so everyone can look at and you just save a lot of time.
I totally agree.
And what are we selecting
Look,
to?
take a look around the neighborhood,
Correct,
the properties,
yes.
and say, this property to me seems, it probably isn't gonna be worth saving.
Okay.
This property could be saved, you know.
No, I don't.
Of our efforts with demolition. I'm seriously, but don't start with demolition. You start with, what are the improvements that need to be made to this product? That's what you start with. So, it seems like there's this hidden elephant in the room that our plan is to demolish all the buildings in the historic district. And I know that's not it, but that's how the perception
Okay,
is
Here's how you
coming
get
out.
around it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, you send out to us guidelines, what you think we should be doing, consult some folks and send out to all of us, so we'll have one set of criteria that we are going by.
But
we have the matrix, and I'll resend out the
Yes.
matrix. Look at this matrix, use the matrix to determine where we should go with that individual property.
So what we were supposed to do today, 5 houses that we thought we could do quickly. Mr.
Yep.
Washington came up with 3.
Yep.
I had 5. And then 5 of the houses that were so in need, like the most critical that either need to be saved, addressed, however that is. But, the ones that are like really bad and
Well-
maybe really significant. I thought that's what we were supposed to do today, was bring 5 of that.
That sounds.
I'm good with that.
And then with Mr. Washington's recommendation, everybody sends that a week ahead of time.
Send out
Yes.
and
Okay, but here's the qualifying issue, I think. When you're looking at the vacant and dilapidated, you're looking at the 10 worst, whatever we want to do it. And you're looking at those, when you see one that is really in bad condition, you have to think about what is the cost to bring that back to serviceable condition. So you have to do the analysis as it relates to cost as well. So your 5,
No.
your 5, yes, no, now wait a minute. Your 5 worst that you think would be the best candidates for renovation would be those that economically can also be thought of as being renovated. And if financially they're on the other end of the scale, those will fall out from not being your 5 best.
I'd also like to propose that we don't just send it out a week ahead. Julie's got lots of stuff that she's gonna do. And that we need to get the information to.
That's why I said by close of business Friday,
This Friday?
that would be that.
That's, I didn't hear that. I was gonna say the 7th. and
Next Friday.
Next
This is Water Festival week.
Crazy. Conference on.
No, it's, yeah, and it is festival. I was proposing for the 7th, because our next meeting is not
That would be the
17th.
Well, then don't send it to me, because I'm gonna be on the road.
Okay, you need to be on the road.
Then first,
Send it.
Send what to her?
By the 7th.
I agree with what Stacy just.
Well,
you
see Friday, it's first, but you'll have to be gone.
We need clarity.
Yeah.
What are we sending them for? Okay?
I'll be here, I leave the 9th.
Okay,
That's why I
so we could send it to you by the 31st. And then you can
And I'll
Why
get it.
don't you just?
get it,
copy both?
a copy of that.
So
So by the 31st, so you can
Yeah.
be a part of it, okay? So the 31st.
So 5 are low hanging fruit and 5 that need.
Our
First
version
initiative.
First initiative.
Go ahead, Kurt.
How about 5 low hanging fruit and 5 that need maintenance?
Okay, and is there criteria
That's
for,
what's in-
is there criteria for first initiatives? What is the criteria for selecting
Whatever you think it is.
Whatever you think,
Whatever
whatever you
think
think are the
are
most economically feasible projects
So,
to take.
so Mr. Washington already talked about 3.
Correct.
That aren't crazy.
Right.
Or the people want help and they're open to it, so like.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my.
Then it's like,
And Fred,
Yes.
please send me those 3 quickly.
What are you gonna do
Right.
with those 3 houses? What are you gonna do?
I can't.
What are we going to do with those 3 houses or 5 houses when we decide which ones those are? What are we going to do? We're gonna ask the city to give us the money to rent, what are we gonna do?
Well, I think that's something to be figured out later.
No, I think, I think it's finding the fund, helping those people find the funding sources. That's what we're gonna do, is help those people find the money to get the work done.
I think
That's
we
what I think is our charter.
we need to talk about that more as to what that would look like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Once
But
we
I
know.
mean, you've actually had conversation with them. You know what I'm saying? So.
But listen, everyone can have conversations who want, or everyone can.
Right.
What do you call it, dashboard, you can do that. But it's up to you, however you wish. You can go online and look at the properties and decide that I want to look a little more detailed about the history of it, and all those persons who had, and what it's sold for and all those good things. You can do that if you want. The idea is bring something to the table so that at some point this group can come to some kind of consensus as to where we're gonna. That's all we're saying. It's not perfect. We are not a perfect group, but we want to get to a point that we take some action.
Yes.
So we're
Right.
falling
I
up
agree
to
there.
some action, okay?
All right. Anything else? Meeting adjourned.